Bible reading today is collections of sayings or verses that are taken from various chapters in the book of Proverbs. You can find those verses in the handout in the Blue Bible. Husbands and wives, so you will be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words, who forsakes the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice in the wife of your youth, a lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her breasts fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. Why should you be intoxicated, my son, with a forbidden woman, and embrace the bosom of an adulteress? An excellent wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of a husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. Children and parents, my son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof, for the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. The righteous who walks in his integrity, blessed are his children after him. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth and do not sell it. Buy wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks, Indrani. Good morning again. Great to be with you all this morning. If we haven't met before, my name's Reece and I'm the lead pastor here at Proclaim. Thanks for bearing with us. We've had so many technical difficulties today, and I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to go, but we got there. So thank you. And I could hear you guys just blowing a hole through the ceiling with your singing. So thank you for singing and drowning Owen and I out. I think you guys sound better than us. So good job. Sorry, Owen. Keep the handout. If you've got a Bible near you, there's a handout. That's all the verses you'll need for today. So today, we're going to talk about family. Family relationships are very interesting, aren't they? You know what can be said of every person in the world is that they've come from a family. We've all got a family in some way, and no one is an exception to that. Some of us know our families pretty well, and we know that families can be wonderful and beautiful and a blessing. Some of us know our families really well, and we know that family can be awful and difficult and broken. Some of us don't know our families. That's just the reality of family. In this room, we have people who are married, people who are not married, and we're all kids. We're all children. So basically the reason I say that is there is something for all of us today. Some of us are right in the thick of what it is to have children. Yes. Some of us do not have children, and for some of us, our children are grown up and out of the house because the vast representation of what is in the room talking about marriage and children means that we do have something for you today. And as I begin, I want to start by saying, for some of us, today might be hard. Some of us have dysfunctional families, and so I just kind of want to recognize that this is a reality today. Maybe some of us in the room are divorced. Maybe some of us are struggling in marriage. Maybe some of us have a rough relationship with our kids, or our kids have a rough relationship with us. Maybe some of us are single parents. Maybe some of us have lost parents, and some of us may have lost children. So before we dive in, I just want to say, if you're here and you already feel that this was a bad Sunday to come to, I just want to say you are seen and valued by our church. We love you. We see you. We want to walk with you. So please don't leave. Please stay. Please stay with us and help us journey with you if things are hard at the moment. Because that's what being the body of Christ is about. So if after the sermon today you feel the need that you want to talk with someone and pray with someone, I would recommend that you prioritize it. Make that your priority. Don't leave, but stick around and talk to someone. And finally, if you still feel like you don't fit in any of the categories that I've mentioned so far, I would say there's one more category I haven't mentioned. Young people in our church are watching you. That sounds a bit stalkerish, doesn't it? They're watching you and they're going to imitate you. So in a way, I'm saying that's your problem. And you have to deal with that problem. So I think there is something here for you today, because even though you might not be a parent, you might be parenting more than you actually realize. So today we're going to let the Bible speak, because in family, Proverbs is going to answer the question of how we live wisely and beautifully in family relationships, because that's what God wants for us. And that's what we should want too. There's so much that Proverbs has to say on the topic of family. In fact, Proverbs has too much to say. For my initial draft of scriptures, I had 3 pages. So I had to cut a lot down because we cannot cover everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 3 things. Firstly, we're going to look at the relationship between husbands and wives. Then we're going to look at the relationship between parents and children. And then children and parents. They're the 3 things that we're going to do today. Husbands and wives, parents and children, children and parents. So let's just go into the first point, husbands and wives. The first thing I want to point out is the very first verse at the top of the handout. Proverbs 2:16-17. I want us to notice one word in those 2 verses. The word is covenant. Marriage is covenant. What that word covenant means, if you don't know, is it's a binding agreement between 2 parties. So husbands and wives in the room, that's what marriage is. It's a covenant that you make before God. So it's actually between you and your spouse, but it's also a deal you're making with God. And it's not to be forgotten. I wonder if you've met the person in culture and society that says something like this. Have you heard these objections? Why do I need a piece of paper just to tell someone I love them? Has anyone encountered someone who said that? A few. I'm not married because I don't want to be tied down. Anybody? Yeah, another few. I don't want to get married because it's too much commitment. Yeah, you're in a relationship. You're already committed, but yeah, okay. You've probably heard some other doozies that you could add to the list. I think those objections are interesting because they're partly wrong and they're partly right. But let's just speak to the first objection, because we don't have time to go into any others. You don't need a piece of paper to tell someone you love them. You know, that's true. Isn't it? I mean, I could tell you I love you right now. I don't need a piece of paper for that. But when you get married, what the bride and groom are doing is not declaring how much they love each other today. That's the point. What's happening is the bride and groom are making covenant promises that they're going to love each other when they don't feel like they love each other anymore. In the future, the unknown future. I wonder if you've ever taken notice of wedding vows. Those vows are very, actually, after the couples say the vows, they say, "This is my solemn vow and promise." Isn't that an interesting thing to say? One of the privileges I have as a pastor is I get to officiate weddings. And actually, in our congregation, I've officiated 5 weddings from couples so far in this church. And it's great. It's one of the highlights of what I do. And before the wedding, I get to sit down with the couples and we go through the vows. From the wedding service in the prayer book, I'm going to tell you what the vows say. I promise to love, comfort, honour, and protect, and forsaking all others, be faithful, so long as I shall live. To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish as long as we both shall live. They're so beautiful. Do you notice? They're all for the future. From today forward. This is future promises. And in response to the vows, the bride and groom say to each other, I will, not I do. Because it's not about how you feel today. It's not about your feelings. It's easy to say I do, isn't it? I can say to all of you to your face, I love you today. It's about the future. Will you do this in the future? Will you do this when it's not going to be easy? Will you do this when you don't feel the same way you do today? I will. That's the promises you make when you are married. Another common objection you hear of marriage is that married people have no love in their marriage. Have you ever heard that? Why would I ever want to tie down with one person? That's no love. Why would I want to get married and have to live life forever with one person? What if I don't like them in the future? I've heard lots of people say that. Sounds like a life of misery. And I think Proverbs says it depends. It depends on your mindset. What is your mindset for marriage in the first place? Throughout history, we've actually typically seen in society 2 types of marriage. Usually we've seen marriage to a partner or marriage to a friend. So let me explain what I mean by that. In traditional society, the purpose of marriage was security and status. Make sure that you are secure, make sure you have status for your family. So then the husband and wife would be paired up and married and they would have kids. And for centuries, it was generally accepted in most cultures that you would marry this way. You would marry for security, you would marry for status, you would marry for children, you would marry to continue your family line. But what about love? Don't worry about love. That comes elsewhere. Or in fact, especially in Roman society, find it elsewhere. But what do you see now? That was traditional society. In modern society, people don't marry for security and status. It's all about love. You marry your best friend. You marry, and when people start marrying for love, and that became popular, cultures all over the world, they couldn't believe it. Hang on, no, you don't marry for love. You're ruining your future. How can you marry for love and neglect the important things in life? So which does Proverbs command? Immediately you might think that Proverbs would back traditional society, marry for security and status, but it might surprise you to find out that Proverbs backs the other option. It backs modern society because it encourages you to find your best friend. It encourages you to find someone you don't ever want to live without. It encourages you to find someone that you don't want to ever stop doing life with. So look again at Proverbs 2:16-17. Here is an example of a woman who has left her marriage. The woman has forsaken the companion of her youth. The woman has forgotten the covenant that she made. And the writer of Proverbs presents this scenario as tragic. But I wonder if you can see the assumption. Marry the companion of your youth. That's the assumption. What does that mean? It means romance and friendship should be combined. It should be with your companion because we marry our companion. And we say, well, isn't that lovely? Western society had it right all along. Good on us. Pat ourselves on the back. But actually, think about this. This is 3,000 years ago. Proverbs is breaking the cultural norm of what you would traditionally marry for. And it says, don't marry for security and status, marry your companion. Marry your love. Marry for romance and friendship. Let the person you marry be your companion, your most intimate and best friend. And Proverbs also says that marriage should be romantic and intimate. I'm sure that most of you in the room, when Indriani read Proverbs 5:18-20, noticed. Maybe some of your mouths dropped. This is church. We can't have a reading with the word breasts in it, can we? That's a bit far. Can we look at that verse for a moment? Look at what is encouraging marriage to look like. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. Be intoxicated by her love. That word intoxicated, where else have you heard that word? Usually the police officer would say it, right? We usually think about that word when someone has drunk too much alcohol. So we think about intoxication as negative. But here Proverbs says your marriage should be intoxicating. It's actually a positive word here. The love you have in your marriage should be romantic. It should be sexual. It should be coupled with Proverbs 2 that you are with your most intimate and best friend, intoxicating. It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful presentation of marriage. Proverbs also encourages men and women to be of a specific character in their marriage. So what kind of woman does Proverbs encourage women to be? Proverbs 31, verses 10-31 is this poem. It's this beautiful poem at the end of Proverbs. If you've never read it, I would recommend you do. Essentially, it praises the ideal woman, the role model, the woman of strength. But in her strength, it's not that she's strong and trying to compete with her husband. Rather, in her strength, she gives herself to her family. In her strength, she gives herself to her community. In her strength, she has high standards and she sticks to those standards. She's a woman who's not naive. She understands how the world works, but she's up for it. And what kind of man does Proverbs encourage men to be? You might find this interesting because Proverbs 31 is about the ideal woman, but it also talks about what an ideal man should do. And the husband in Proverbs 31 notices his wife's character. The man in Proverbs 31 trusts his wife. He is honored to be her husband, is what it says. He's a man who recognizes that the woman that God gave him is his greatest earthly treasure. He's a man that lets his wife win a deep place in his heart. She is an excellent wife, and her husband cherishes her. He's the man who praises his wife, and he's the man who lets his kids know that he's praising his wife so that they can praise her too. I try this out with my kids. I usually Elise and I try and be publicly affectionate in our house so that our kids see us kiss. Hasn't really worked out with Piper. She thinks it's really disgusting. But it kind of works against her because then our other kids say, Piper, Mum and Dad are kissing again. And then she runs over, he's my daddy. But the point is we do that because I want to show affection to my wife so that the kids see it. I want to praise her so that the kids see it. Now, immediately, I understand what's happening. You're thinking, that's lovely. Have you met my husband? Have you met my wife? Ladies, you might be thinking, I haven't gotten through to my husband. Not the way that Proverbs 31 describes. Men, you might be thinking, I haven't told my wife everything. I don't affirm my wife the way that Proverbs 31 says. So can I speak to the women in the room with husbands? I just want to assure you, God sees you. He sees your marriage, and I want to encourage you, when God wanted your husband married, he had you in mind. He had you in mind. And in God's eyes, you're the one for your husband. That's true, and I want to affirm you in that. God affirms you as the right woman for the job. And wherever you feel you lack, if you ask the Lord, he's ready to give you his strength. Ask him. Can I speak to the men in the room with wives? I want to challenge you. If you haven't trusted your wife with everything, why not? What are you afraid of? God has led you to your wife. She's your companion. In his commentary on Proverbs, Ray Ortlund has a bit to say about this. He says, this is a quote, "What does the word husband mean? We have the related English word husbandry. That means cultivation. And when the word husband is used as a verb, it means to cultivate. If you're a husband, here's your job. Cultivate and nurture your wife. Your lifetime impact on your wife should be that her life opens up more and more and she's enabled to become all that God wants her to be. God is calling you as her husband, so to care for her that in her latter years she will be thinking, what a great life I've had. My husband understood me. He cared for me. He inspired me to grow in Christ." Husbands, that's our God-given role as a husband. We're to cultivate our wives, nurture them, build them up, encourage them. And married couples, this is the vision Proverbs gives when you marry your best friend. The vision of the Bible is that you marry the one who is as passionate as you for God's glory, and you actually want to support them for your whole life, bringing out who they are, helping them to thrive and flourish under God. It's not marriage for status. It's not even marriage so that you feel fulfilled, because if that's what you're going into marriage for, it will never work. The Bible's view of marriage is the same as the gospel. Two people made in the image of God, broken, but Jesus looks at us and sees that we're works in progress. He loves us. He gives us his love. He gives us his righteousness. He dies for us and walks with us. And in marriage, we're supposed to do the same thing. We're supposed to look at ourselves, understand that we're both works in progress, love each other, never withhold our love, give each other righteousness, die to ourselves, and walk with them for their good and their best. Because in marriage, we're actually meant to see the gospel reproduce. And bringing the future vows to that, we marry and say, like Jesus does to us, I'm marrying you and I'm going to journey with you because I can see who you are now, but I can see who Jesus wants you to be. And I want to be part of that journey. I want to help you. I want to sacrifice myself for you, serve you. You do that for me as well so that we can serve the Lord now and in the future. It's an exciting thing when you see the journey of marriage. We're committed to each other for our future under God. And in that way, marriage is completely not about us. And if you're in a marriage and you have kids, when your kids see it, Proverbs 31 says, when they see you living out the gospel together, they're blessed. They're not naive. They see everything that you're doing, and they will follow the lead of what you show them as an example. We could say so much more on that topic. We could say so much more. That's all the time we have because we need to get to parents and children and parents. So let's go to a parent's relationship to their children. One of the things that Proverbs is strong on is about how parents relate to their kids. If we go back to the idea of traditional society versus modern society, how would traditional and modern society say we should relate to our kids? Well, traditional society says we relate to our kids by controlling them. We control them. Make sure your kids know who is boss. Make sure that they fear you so that then they will do what you tell them. Modern society would say we relate to our kids by love and affirmation. Make sure your kids know you love them. Make sure you say nice and kind words. Don't show them negatives about themselves. They'll figure it out. And it might surprise you to find out that Proverbs doesn't really buy into either of those types of society methods. Proverbs says the main goal of relating to your kids is making them wise. That's actually your goal as a parent, is to make your child wise. We don't want to control them. We don't want to coddle them. We want to make them wise. Look at Proverbs 23, 22 to 25. It's the bottom verses on the handout. Listen to your father who gave you life. Do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth and do not sell it. Buy wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. This is saying that the main job of a mum and dad is to give wisdom to their kids, to teach them what is good and bad, to teach them what is right and wrong, to teach them what is wise and unwise. Think about this. What makes you capable of knowing right from wrong? You know what the most likely answer is? Your parents told you, because they wanted you to be wise when you grew up. Look at Proverbs 3:11 and 12. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof, for the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. So if your mother and father disciplined you, they got the understanding of what right from wrong. They delighted in you. And even if you moved from their teaching, they still raised you right because they tried. Now, parents in the room, if you've got kids who are off the rails, take comfort in that. If you taught your child right from wrong, Proverbs says you did your best. Now, we've come to the part you've all been waiting for, I know. Discipline. What is Reece going to say about disciplining your kids? What's it going to say? I would say, Proverbs says that we must. We must discipline our kids. I don't think anyone could read Proverbs and come to any other kind of conclusion, honestly. Except that one of the roles of parents is to discipline your kids. That's the only thing that you could come to the conclusion of when you get to the end of Proverbs. In what ways? We'll get there. And also we need to understand, a lot of what we would hear in the world is that training kids is just unwrapping them. So unwrap the goodness in the child. They're beautiful, they're pure, they're lovely, they smell like roses. Just unwrap that box and see what comes out. It'll be okay. I think Proverbs would say, not so much. Not so much. They are cute, but they aren't a bunch of roses all the time. Discipline is good, and it needs to be defined. The reason I say discipline is good is when we think about disciplining our children, we think about that as a negative sense, but it's the only time we think so. If an athlete wants to be the best in their sport, what do they have to do? Discipline. They have to discipline their bodies. If someone wants to lose weight, what do they have to do? They need discipline. The word discipline is the word musa in Hebrew, and it means more than what you think. It means a combination of instruction, discipline, correction, checking yourself, and learning. That's what the word means. To discipline, then, is to instruct, to correct, to learn. And discipline comes in many forms. Look at Proverbs 22:15. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. If you're not sure what this proverb means, let me break it down for you. Children are a bit foolish. That's it. I got a laugh from my son, so you're allowed to laugh. Has any parent ever seen your kids do something stupid and you say, why did you do that? And they say, I don't know. Has anyone ever seen that? It can't just happen in my family. Proverbs 22:15 helps us to understand why. Children aren't born ready to be wise. Children aren't born selfless. Children aren't born savvy. And kids don't know how others feel unless you teach them. Kids don't know how they come across unless you tell them. It's our duty as parents to help them. Proverbs says that folly is bound up in the heart of the child. It's wrapped around it. Foolishness is blocking. So if you love your kids, your job is not just to encourage them, it's to disentangle the roots that are bound up in their hearts. That means teaching them. And Proverbs 22:15 mentions that the rod of discipline drives foolishness from the kids. We immediately hear rod. We think, should we be, smacking our kids? And I think a rod of discipline can mean that. And certainly Proverbs would say that it can mean that if you take, for example, Proverbs 23, 13 and 14, if you look that up later. Now, I don't know what your views are on physical discipline for your kids. And again, I would say you can't read Proverbs and say that physical discipline isn't there. You can't. But the Bible isn't actually that interested in your view on it. It's more interested in understanding that you understand what your role is as a parent. That your role as a parent is to love your children so that they are wise. And that outworks in discipline. Proverbs models what a parent has to do in the why of discipline. Why? Because discipline and discipleship are the same word. We want our kids to be disciples, so we disciple them. We want to discipline our kids so that they become disciples. And nowhere in Proverbs, just in case you're wondering, nowhere in Proverbs is there any permission to discipline in harshness, in anger, or in abuse. Discipline is always love. It is guidance. It is instruction. And it is consequence for the wrong action. And the point Proverbs makes is that discipline, meaning instruction, is good in various forms. A rod of discipline doesn't necessarily mean physical discipline. It does mean it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it, because think about what a rod is. A rod is a picture of authority. It is a picture of direction. It is a picture of instruction. And throughout the Bible, when a rod is used, it means that the person has the instruction. The person has the authority. So that means discipline is discipling in the way of wisdom. You want them to grow and be disciples into wise women and men for the rest of their lives. It's showing them what foolishness is and what wisdom is. Proverbs 13:24, whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. That means if we don't actually do the hard work of caring for our kids, disciplining for them, caring for them, instructing them, rebuking them, correcting them, we hate our kids. That's what Proverbs says. It's not what Reece says. It's what Proverbs says. What's integrity? Integrity is not being a hypocrite. Integrity means that you walk the walk and talk the talk. So it doesn't mean that you need to be perfect in your parenting, but it does mean that you have to model what wisdom looks like in a world that is very confusing. Not perfectly, but walking the walk and talking the talk, having integrity. So here's a quick word on physical discipline. Can I start by saying, I'm not a lawyer, okay? So when I'm talking about disciplining children, I am not giving you legal advice. I'm giving you the Bible's perspective. You're not allowed to sue me. Is everyone clear on this? The federal government on Australia's position on physical discipline in every state is that it is lawful to use reasonable physical discipline in every state. And in Victoria, family violence is any form of unreasonable physical force. And that, in our state, is illegal. But it is not against the law to smack your child with reasonable physical discipline. Here's the key word I want to point out: reasonable. We believe two things here at our church. Firstly, family violence will have zero tolerance in our walls. It will have zero tolerance. That is absolutely non-negotiable. Secondly, wisdom says that it is not in contradiction with the law to use reasonable physical discipline if that's what your child needs. So how are you going to discipline your kids? Let me reiterate what I said. Proverbs models what a parent has to do in the why of discipline. Why do we discipline? Discipleship. And nowhere in Proverbs is there any permission to discipline, which most of our parents are probably guilty of. We are not allowed to discipline in anger. We're not allowed to discipline with harshness. And we are not allowed to discipline with abuse. But discipline, according to Proverbs, is a combination of instructing your children. It is a combination of disciplining your children, correcting them, checking yourself, and learning. Discipline is always love. It is guidance and instruction and consequence for wrongdoing. So if we're going to teach our kids wisdom, that means that we have to train them. Proverbs 22:6, train a child up in the way he should go. That means training the child. We have to. Proverbs says it's not optional, we must. And that means we have to make sure that the training and discipline fits the nature of the child. Now, here's what I mean by this. Some kids, one of my children are exactly like this. If you look at them seriously, they know. That's enough. Other kids won't get that message. Other children might need more than a look. What is effective for a 3-year-old isn't effective for a 10-year-old. And discipline should never be done in anger, but in love and correction. And if you think, can I just speak to you if you're wondering about this? If you think discipline looks exactly the same with every child, I think you've missed the point of Proverbs. Because the point of discipline is not control, and it is not coddling. The child needs to know that you love them. The child needs to know that you delight in them, and the child needs to know that you're teaching them right from wrong. And that comes in different forms for different children. And when they grow up, they'll have a lot of opinions on whether you think that whether they think you were right or wrong. Put your hands up if you think your parents did a good job. Don't put your hands up. You're going to have a lot of opinions on that. But they will still know they did their best to prepare you for their lives. And parents, this is the last thing I want to say on this, you've got to talk about it. The reason you've got to talk about this is because your partner, your spouse, might have wisdom in a better way on how to discipline a child than you, or a different child. They may know that child better and what will work and what won't work. So you've got to be wise about it and talk about what you are going to do as you discipline your children. All right, let's go to the final point. Children to parents. Look again at Proverbs 23, 22 to 25. I'll read this out again. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth and do not sell it. By wisdom, instruction, and understanding, the father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. So what does it mean to listen to your father and mother? Proverbs here says that you will not despise them. What's the opposite of despising then? If despising them is not listening to them, so then what's the opposite of despising someone? It's honoring them. That's what it is. Interestingly, the biblical command for children to parents in both the Old and New Testament never changes no matter what. And that command is, children, you must honor your parents. The command not to despise, not to curse, but honor, that command applies every day. Even after you grow up, even after you leave home. In his commentary on Proverbs, Dane Ortland says, to despise our parents is treating them as worthless. To curse our parents means not to swear at them, but to treat them as beneath us. That's what it means to curse them. To honor our parents is treating them as weighty, because the same word for glory as weighty is honor. Treat them as weighty and worthy just because they're your parents. So why does the Bible command this? Why doesn't the Bible say, children, I command you to love your parents? Why doesn't it say that? Why doesn't it say, children, I command you to relate to your parents? It says honor. Throughout our lives, from the process of being an infant to an adult, we are to honor our parents. And the reason might surprise you as to why we are always to honor them. Here's what I think. I want to say this as plainly as I can. I think some parents are evil. That's it. That's the end of my statement. One of the things I've done this year is I've set a goal of reading 70 books. That's more than one book a week for the whole year. And some of the books I've read are real stories of parents who are evil. They are evil. And I think that's why the Bible is quite smart here. It doesn't tell you that you have to love evil parents. It doesn't tell you you have to relate to evil parents. It doesn't tell you you have to follow evil parents. It says honor them. To honor your parents is to treat them with honor. It means we have to find ways in our culture, in our place, in our time, to show them the respect that they deserve because they're our parents. So here are some examples that I thought of that we could do to honor our parents in our time, in our culture, in our place. I think maybe this means that when families get together for a family get-together, we give our parents a special place at the table. So it doesn't mean that we demote them to the kids' table, unless maybe that's what they want. We don't put them in the worst chair. We give them a seat at the table. We don't put them in the corner. It might be that we make an effort to celebrate them on special days of the year. Birthdays, Father's Day, Mother's Day. It might be that when we speak to them, we let them have their say first. That might be the way that we honor our parents. But we have to find ways to do this. It has to be done, no matter who they are. And maybe honoring your parents is allowing them to see themselves in you. So, if there's anything that you do that you got from them, maybe honoring your parents is telling them, hey, the reason why I'm like this is from something that I saw in you. Thank you for that. And another way you can honor them is give them a chance. What if you have awful parents? My parents are very happy to admit that they weren't perfect. I haven't really spoken much about my dad to anyone, but he was addicted to drugs and alcohol when I was little, and he was actually our town drug dealer. So when I put this sermon together, I understand that honouring your parents is hard. What if your parents have hurt you? What if your parents were untrustworthy? What if your parents were abusive? What if your parents were worse? I think the way you would honour them is pray that God would change them. And if they change, honour them for the change that they've actually made, that God has brought about in their hearts. I think that's what honouring them looks like. And a big way you can honour your parents is that if they've wronged you, forgive them. Because if you live with resentment towards them, if you're still mad at them, then Proverbs says you haven't gained wisdom. And one of the biggest ways I think you can honour your parents, it might actually sound like the opposite of honour, but I don't think this is. I think you can honour your parents by being free from the burden of pleasing them. Because if you feel like you have to please your parents for the rest of your life, I'm talking to the adults here, if you feel like you need to please your parents for the rest of your life, the reason for that is probably because you feel like you need to live up to their expectation. But one of the biggest ways that you could honour them is to show them that you have grown up, to be your own person, to show them that you can make your own decisions. There's some of the suggestions I've got. How you honour your parents, though, is an integral matter for your godliness, Proverbs says. And all of us look at our parents, I mentioned this before, and most of the time when we think about our parents, we think about what they did wrong. Isn't that true? Especially when you're a teenager, I think we feel like we've received the gift of all wisdom and understanding. But Proverbs says we need to grow up and honour them. Proverbs says this is a big deal, actually, because it's a sign of the condition of your heart. We have to honour our parents. And what that looks like for you may be different to the person next to you. Now, I'm pretty much at the end of my sermon today. Did everyone get something? Okay, I see half the room nodding. I hope it's more than half. Is everyone feeling that this is easy? No. This is hard. Then I think Proverbs did the job today. And the only way we can get help in this area is to look to Jesus. So as we go through the list, what do we do if in our marriages we don't see the things that we've discussed? What if we see other marriages as we observe other marriages and we see that they're not in good shape. Firstly, I would say to anyone who is struggling in their marriage today, be encouraged about what a good marriage could be. And continue to seek the good of your partner, because the moment that you lose that, you're not holding on to your vows. And the more you seek their good, the deeper your love for them will be, and hopefully the deeper their love for you will be. Be loving, talk to them about it, be patient, and if you need help, if you are in a position where you just need help in your marriage, talk about it with someone you trust. Because sometimes we can't see what we should do next, but others can help us. The church is Jesus' bride. It's not a vibrant and living being. You know, when I think about marriage, I think Jesus got the worst deal. He got us. He had to die for his bride. He had to die for his bride so that he could stay in a relationship with her. For anyone struggling in marriage, Jesus is your hope. He understands what you feel. He's here with you. He wants to walk with you. He wants you to realign your marriage so that he is first, not you, so that he is first, not your spouse. And only if we let him be first will we be then able to begin to fix our marriages. What if you're married but want to be? I've got a family relative who fits in this category, and I think there are many of us who sit in this category. Will I ever get married? We're going to get a lot more into this kind of area next week, so hold on. But what you need to know right now is that marriage doesn't complete someone. You know, if marriage completed someone, then Jesus would not be the perfect person. The most perfect person who ever existed was not married. The most perfect person who ever existed and was the most complete and whole person, and he did not have a girlfriend or a wife. So when you're at the next wedding and you think, when's it my turn? Just remember, only one person in the universe can make your life whole, and it's not going to be the person you marry. You've got him already. You've got him already. And one day you'll see Jesus face to face, and he can't wait to receive you and embrace you. Will you see Jesus today and let him be enough for you? And we're all children. How can we look at our parents and either not resent them or not feel the urge to please them? Look at Proverbs 3:11 and 12. The Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. When Jesus died for the sin of the world on the cross, he lost his Father's delight so that we could have the Father's delight. So no matter how good or bad your parents are, Jesus can help you honor them because you have all the approval you've ever needed from your Heavenly Father. And if you're not a Christian here today, is there something you need to be free from? Are you free? Do you need to be free from the burdens that your marriage has brought about? Do you need to be free from your parents? Do you need to be free from the burdens that your children are putting on you? Make today the day where Jesus will take your burdens and come to him today. At the cross, Jesus was rejected so you don't have to be. At the cross, he was abandoned so that you would always have a place at his table. He was lost so that you could be found. He was cast out so that you could be treated as his family. And he will love you like you've never been loved. He will delight in you. He will complete you in the way that you never thought possible. So turn and trust in Jesus today. As we finish, I want to give space to recognize that this sermon has probably stirred up a bit. It's probably stirred up a bit in us. The good news is the Bible is realistic. So often, the Bible encourages us not to lean away from pain, not to bury it, not to try and handle it ourselves, but the Bible says, give it to our Father, and he loves us very much. God says, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. Give me your burdens. Come to me for forgiveness. I'll help you. As a husband or a wife, as a parent, as a child, come to me. So what I want to do today is I want to give space for us. Can we just take a minute to bring ourselves before the Lord before we continue in the service? Let's ask the Holy Spirit that he would bring us where we are at so that we would find grace in our time of need. And then I'm going to lead us in prayer. Let's take a time, just a moment, just a minute, and then I'll pray.